Exposed. 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 You're exposed. You're exposed. You are exposed. Exposed, 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 exposed. You are exposed, sir. I'm gonna expose you. Expose you. Oh my god, expose you.
A few years ago now, Jaclyn released her original Jaclyn Hill palette with Morphe. This palette became a cult favorite because of how amazing the formula was and how versatile the color story was. The Jaclyn Hill palette became a staple in a lot of makeup artist kits because of this. The formula of the original Jaclyn Hill palette was so good that Jaclyn actually signed papers so she would own the formula and no one else who collabs with Morphe would be able to use it. In Jaclyn's latest commercial for her Jaclyn Hill palette Volume 2, she briefly talks about this.
So this is the same loved formula as the Jaclyn Hill original palette, and people ask me about that all the time because they're like, wait, what do you mean like it's a different formula? Because Morphe has their standard formulas and I created my own formula. There's actually been other people who've collaborated with Morphe who've asked if they can just use my formula, and they're like, sorry, that's Jaclyn's only. Like, I signed papers, it's my formula that I worked very hard on a couple of years back to develop.
Although someone may not be telling the truth. A YouTuber named Luvs Reviews uploaded a video this week explaining why she's unlisted her review from a few years ago on the original Jaclyn Hill palette. Jen explains in her video that her sister-in-law recently bought the first Jaclyn Hill palette from Ulta and she didn't really like it. Jen was really surprised since she uses and loves her palette that she bought back in 2017. When Jen actually went to swatch her sister-in-law's palette, she realized something was wrong. Jen reached out to Morphe directly to ask if any changes had been made to the palette's formula, to which they denied and suggested that the palette was just defective and to return it. Although if you guys have watched Jen Luvs reviews in the past, you know that she didn't stop there. Instead, she went out and bought herself a 2020 version of the Jaclyn Hill palette to make sure her other one wasn't just a defective palette. After swatching it, she realized the two palettes from 2020 swatched with almost a completely different color than the original Jaclyn Hill palette from 2017. If we go back to the email that Morphe sent Jen, you'll notice they said the pigmentation hasn't changed. They avoided mentioning anything about the formula. The reason for this is because the formula actually did change. Jen went through both formula lists and noticed a few differences between the 2017 palette and the 2020 palettes. One major change in the newer formula is it seems like they've added shea butter, coconut oil, and jojoba oil. After Jen's video went live, viewers expressed how disappointed they were with the change, along with possible theories as to why they changed the formula. Here's what people had to say. It feels like they kept the better formula until it had enough of a reputation of being amazing, then switched to a cheaper formula. I hope that's not the case, but it's looking bad. Moral of the story, I'm done with Morphe. They're just too shady. There's so many brands out there. There's no reason to buy from them. One person brought up the fact that since Morphe has included different oils in the newer Jaclyn Hill palettes, this might make them expire faster. Personally, I'm kind of surprised that they even went down the path of adding oils to the formula. We all remember how bad the oils were in Jaclyn's lipsticks. Another ingredient that was added to the Jaclyn Hill palette was carmine. Carmine comes from crushed beetles, so therefore the palette would no longer be considered vegan, something Morphe definitely should have announced, since when the palette came out in 2017, it was in fact vegan, which means it contained no carmine. Jaclyn actually tweeted out back in 2017 that she would never create anything that involves animal cruelty. Now, whether you think carmine should be considered animal cruelty is up to your personal opinion, although people who buy vegan and cruelty-free makeup would want to be aware about something like this. Personally, I think if a product was once vegan, then made not vegan, it should be announced publicly, not just slipped into the ingredients list quietly. But I mean, this is Morphe we're talking about, so what can you really expect there? Like I mentioned earlier, in Jaclyn's latest commercial for her new palette, she mentions it has the same love formula as the original Jaclyn Hill palette, although that's not true either. The Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette has the updated formula that includes carmine. I actually bought the Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette for research purposes, and I can confirm that it says right on the back of the packaging, 10 pans in the palette contain carmine. A lot of people feel like Morphe should be morally obligated to inform their customers of the change in the formula. Here's what people had to say. Brands shouldn't change the formulation of a product without saying anything. It needs to be addressed. Veganism within makeup products is a selling point for a lot of people nowadays. It would be awful to let such a thing go unspoken. They need to address it because then it seems shady, like they're trying to fly under the radar. Morphe finally addressed their side of the situation in an Instagram comment to someone demanding answers. Although they failed to mention anything about carmine in this statement. They said, "It's our goal to give you the best makeup ever. We know there was previous incorrect communications about our original Jaclyn palette formulas, and we wanted to clarify. Sometimes we reformulate things we've already had in our lineup to ensure you get super pigmented, seriously creamy, and blendable shades you love. Now infused with coconut oil and shea butter. We only have your best experience in mind when formulating our products. If you have any further questions, please contact our customer service. Back in late 2017, when Jaclyn's palette first got put into Ulta, she went on Snapchat to talk about the rebrand of the palette's packaging. She assured people the formula wouldn't be changing.
So along with my palette now being sold in Ulta, they also decided to give it a little update on the packaging. But anyway, so Morphe recently rolled out an entire rebrand. They are updating everything. Now the formula is the exact same thing. Everything on the inside of the palette is the exact same thing. So if you have the original palette, it is the exact same thing. There is no difference.
If Jaclyn felt like it was necessary to make a statement about the package changes, wouldn't she feel obligated to make a statement when something as important as the formula changes?